Morning, afternoon, and evening, and welcome to our first community call for Azure Verified Modules. We are absolutely thrilled to have all of you here, and we have an exciting agenda lined up for all of you. We're going to start with a little bit of introduction to the team, overview of Azure Verified Modules, road to version 1.0, alignment with well-architected framework, interview panel session with our external contributors, and we'll end it up with some time left with following a Q&A, any questions that you may have. So with that, let me introduce the AVM core team who has been doing all the legwork behind Azure Verified Modules. So we started this project last year around the same time frame. As you can see, there are a number of team members. The way it has been designed is we have team members spread across the world. So likes of Sebastian based in Australia, Bilal, John based in the US, and then we have EMEA folks based in Alex, Erica, Jack. And also we have Azure Verified Modules. We have language experts here as well. So if you see, we have uh, spread the team across language specifications. So if you see, we have people who are experts in Bicep and people who are experts in Terraform. So likes of Alex, Erica, Rainer, who are experts in Bicep, Jack, Matt, Jared, John, Bilal, Predrag, all in Terraform. And then there are a few people who have proficiency in both the languages. So a very exciting team. And also introducing our project managers. So Charlie, who is based in the France, Marta is based in the US, and myself, I'm based in the UK. Okay, there's a slide poll, so please feel free to answer that. Thank you. So before I go into what is AVM, let me give you some background why we started AVM. What was the reason why we started this project back in last year? If you look at any of the customers or partners who have started their cloud journey, typically they go into the portal, they will provision resources by clicking what we call as click hops. Very soon they realize that this is not scalable and they need to find some sort of infrastructure as a code solution or adopt DevOps practices. Once they do that, very soon they realize that they have developed a lot of code, the proliferations, and over the time they are looking to rationalize and standardize the code base. So this is where customers or partners will go and look for open source solutions. If you are a Microsoft shop, you will come into Microsoft organizations, GitHub places where you will find multiple initiatives. And across Microsoft, there has been multiple initiatives to host and provide infrastructure as a code solution for in various languages. Um, this becomes a bit of a challenge for the customers where they try to understand which is the project that they should go ahead and choose. And once they decipher this particular piece and they're in their implementation journey, very soon that they realize that this is not an officially Microsoft supported product or solution. With Azure Verified Module, what we are trying to do is we have created an official initiative from Microsoft to streamline and unify this infrastructure as a code experience for our customers. In the past, you may have heard of number of initiatives, for example, common Azure Resource Module Library, Carmel, or Terraform Verified Modules. All of those things have been evolved into Azure Verified Modules. Now, if you look at Azure Verified Modules, we talk about two concepts here, which is a resource module and a pattern module. A resource module is effectively atomic in nature. For example, if you deploy a VM, you will have operating system disks and your network interface. You can reuse the same resource modules to create to join multiple resource modules and create a pattern module. A resource module has been designed in a fashion where we are looking to extract as many capabilities of specific resources within the same code base. So rather than having multiple implementations, the same code base will have more and more capabilities. Again, it integrates your child resources, it integrates extension resources, and then we have the concept of pattern modules. This is where we may have landing zone accelerators, for example, AKS or AVD. where you can combine multiple resource modules to create a pattern. Another good example is you have the patterns mentioned on the Azure Architecture Center. So that's another good example of pattern modules. So often when you see the implementations in the customer side, you will find a lot of pattern modules which has been used in that case. So really, the point around here is we have created this Azure Verified module to align with well-architected framework with Microsoft with the best practices to ensure that whenever deployment is being done of Azure resources, by default, all the deployment is reliable, is consistent, so there is no configuration drift, and of course, you're getting at scale. So the acceleration of delivery of cloud native or migrated applications. With that, if you move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Just to reinforce once again, so the mission from our side on Azure Verified Modules is to provide a comprehensive set of library in multiple ISC languages. So for the beginning, we have started with Terraform and Bicep. Again, this has been designed to follow the best principles of Microsoft best practices, well-architected framework, one source of truth from Microsoft, really supported by Microsoft, and also looking to standardize and accelerate the deployment. So this is where the specifications ensure that when the development is happening there, everything is being followed in the same sort of structure and patterns. With that, we would like to empower every person and organization on the planet on their infrastructure as a code journey. Now, we have been doing a number of sessions internally and externally. You may have seen a number of YouTube videos. We have collected some of the resources mentioned here. We have a public website where you can go and have a look in terms of what is being published so far. So we have an index to give you some guidance on what are the different modules which have been published, for example, on Terraform and the Hashi registry, for Bicep and the Bicep registry. There are resources available within that section as well. We have monthly blogs which go out on the AVM. You can find John Savale's video as well on the YouTube. There have been a couple of more videos from our core team members on the YouTube. So we have collected as many resources here. Feel free to go and can have a look at it. With that, I will hand it over to Chris for Road to 1.0.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Pankaj. So hopefully everyone can hear me all right. Road to 1.0, I think it's something we've been asked a lot, especially over the last couple of months, is, when can we use the modules? They're not at 1.0 yet. Can it be used in production if it's not at 1.0? Wanted to drop in the little Spider-Man meme here, which is, we're all going to point at each other in terms of tool sets. So if we think Terraform was not at 1.0 for quite a considerable length of time. Bicep, large community under the Microsoft deployments banner uses Bicep, and that's still not at 1.0. So AVM, do we see that going 1.0 in the next couple of months? No, it is on our path to get to what 1.0 is. So what does 1.0 mean for AVM? Mainly limited breaking changes. So at the minute, while interfaces are still changing, specs are changing, we've got different frameworks that we align to. We see a few breaking changes across modules. We'll try and voice these as much as possible. But when we do get to 1.0, that's when we truly should see a pause in what breaking changes are actually being introduced into those modules. The second point is limited CI changes. So for those of you that have been kind of following the blog or any of the work done in AVM, you'll see there's a lot of focus for us around WAF alignment. Now, Jack's going to talk us through that in just a second as to what that means. But it means that we are changing the CI environment, the way we publish modules, the amount of tests every module has to go through, so that we know it's in a fully workable and usable state for customers like yourselves that want to go and consume them. And the SLA response for module owners. So I see there was already a comment in the chat around kind of faster support for certain modules, etc. That is the timing we're at the minute. So we've got module owners, we've got lots of contributors in the external community that are working hard. Obviously, there's a lot going on across all of our modules. If we think about Caramel, there's over 100 and the Bicep library that came over from Caramel. There's over 120 Bicep modules in there, and Terraform itself has been building on tool sets before we start bringing in more of those Terraform modules. So with AVM in its current state, why should we use it now? You know, that feedback loop, the enablement for AVM to evolve, our external community to grow and enable that growth in AVM. So whether that be yourselves contributing back into those modules or actually just providing feedback, opening issues, opening support tickets around those modules to ensure those items get looked at. The biggest question is always around support. So if you're not at 1.0, you've not got any support. Actually, that's not true. We've already responded to stuff via GitHub issues, and actually, Microsoft support have already been in touch with us around several modules that we've had conversations around, such as service bus or tickets opened against those services. So please do utilize those support channels. They are there. They can be used at this current time. And then the biggest piece is to accelerate deployment. We've AVM itself internally, we've used it with several of our customers. I know several external colleagues that are using it with those customers to accelerate those deployment times, especially across different skill levels. When we think about the modern day infrastructure as code, a lot of businesses, yeah, everybody's not level 400 Terraform, level 400 Bicep. There's a variety of skill levels coming in, and actually AVM's helping to address that skill gap, and that contribution back is allowing people to then learn and develop around Bicep and Terraform. If we can go to the next slide, please, Jack. Cool. So I'm just going to hand over to Jack briefly to walk us through WAF alignment and the work that's been going on there.
Thank you, Chris. So, good morning, everyone, or good evening, wherever you are. I think just to cover on the WAF alignment topic, now obviously in the Azure Verified Modules specification, we say that all of our resource modules are WAF aligned by default out of the box. Now that might seem like a bit of a clickbaity term, right? A bit of a high-level selling point. And it is to some degree, but actually there is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we honour this promise. So let's give you some examples, right? So for example, in for a VM, we obviously want to make sure that you're using things like managed disks, and we want to make sure that you're using premium SSDs to get the best SLA for those disks. That's a very simple string property or a Boolean type value that we can set in the module parameters by default to make sure that that value is as we want it to and as it is aligned to the well-architected framework. But for things like, I don't know, maybe a storage account, we want to you may read well architected and you'll see that enabling a private endpoint may be recommended in the security pillar for best practices. However, that breaks the boundary of a resource module, because even though we have shared interfaces that help you enable private endpoints on PaaS services consistently across all of the services that support it, a private endpoint doesn't just need itself. It needs a virtual network. It needs a subnet. It needs a DNS zone. It needs the zone group linking. So what we say in that instance is we're not going to enable things or make the defaults in our modules for WAF alignment that require dependent resources. Diagnostic settings is another good example. The modules support them. The modules are able to enable diagnostic settings consistently and very easily across all of our resource modules. However, they're not enabled by default because it requires a log analytics workspace and some other resources first. You can absolutely deploy all those and stitch them together, no problem at all. But we won't enable them by default because they will mean that they're not atomic by nature, right? Because you won't be able to deploy one on its own if you don't have the other thing. That's all documented in our FAQ and in the spec. So if you want to read more around that, go and do read. But basically, the takeaway is anything that's a simple string or a Boolean value or an integer, something that we can set very, very easily, we will set the default for in our parameter defaults. You are obviously free to override them at any stage via your parameter or variable inputs. That's absolutely fine. But out of the box, they will come there. Now, how do we get towards that? How do we measure that? How do we test that? And we're getting towards building tooling now. So we're using the frameworks here that are listed on screen. So the well-architected framework, reliability hub, and the Azure Proactive Resiliency Library, or APRL, if you've not heard of that one before. But we're only using the PG verified recommendations out of that framework. And what we're doing is starting to build these into existing tools that we're using to lint and test all of these modules before they get published. So for Bicep, we're using the awesome PS rule. We'll hear from Bernie in just a second around that tool and how you can help use that and help us write more rules. And for Terraform, we've written a plugin for TF-Lint, and we've got Matt here as well, who's going to give us a bit of a brief intro into what that is and how we're using it. From the security side of things, we're going to start aligning towards the cloud security benchmark and the Microsoft Defender for Cloud recommendations. And again, we'll use similar tool sets to achieve those. And one key message to send right now is that we are building the rule set. So there is good coverage today, but it is not 100% on all of the modules. So we are increasing that and we're working through that. And we need everybody's help to let us know what needs to be WAF aligned. And if you're spotting things in modules, then please do feel to raise issues, put PRs in to set those things to be defaults. And we'll never release a change into an existing version. I think that's really important. So any breaking changes that we may make, they'll be into new published versions, so you won't get them automatically unless you've got your version constraints set to adopt those changes as a Terraform customer. So you won't get any breaking changes just by sitting on the version that you're already on. If it's working today, it will carry on working tomorrow. So yeah, that's a very brief overview of the WAF alignment stuff. Please do go and check out the AVM website where we talk about this and what does WAF aligned mean in more detail, and hopefully that provides all the clarity that you're looking for. All right, so I think moving on to the next one.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Jack. So we've got Matt and Bernie with us, I believe. If you guys could just give us a quick wave.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome. So we've just got kind of 3 questions that we're going to run through with yourselves, and then we've got our external contributors as well. So firstly, we'll start off with yourself, Matt. So what's the tool set that you've been building, which is being used in AVM, I think it's actually TF-Lint, and what does the community need to know about it?
Good question, Chris. So we have built a TF-Lint plugin. TF-Lint is the kind of industry standard way of doing static analysis on Terraform. And we have implemented 2 types of rule within that. The first category is essentially the AVM specific stuff. Now, that is things like, have you got the right outputs? Are you referencing modules that aren't AVM, which is not allowed? Things like that, things like kind of the core AVM spec. The other type of rule we've got is the well-architected rules, and that is more like, as Jack said, is your load balancer a standard SKU? Because if it's not, you can't make it zone redundant. Things like that. Are your front-end IPs on your load balancer rules redundant? We also have rules such as for certain resources that are zone pinned, we actually insist that the zone parameter does not have a default, so it's up to then the caller of the module to fill that out. So all of that kind of stuff is in the TF-Lint plugin. Now, in a bit of breaking news, I think what we're going to do is actually split these up into 2 TF-Lint plugins, because we've got the WAF type rules and we've got the AVM type rules, and actually we've now got a use case where we need to test certain things for the WAF, but we don't want to test the AVM stuff. So what we might do is split those up into 2 rule bases. But yeah, so that's broadly what they do.
That's brilliant, Matt. And in terms of the TF-Lint plugin and the rules itself, if people want to contribute to that, if people want to help build that out, where can they do that? Can they do that at the minute, or is that something that's planned in the future?
Absolutely, yeah. All of our stuff is open source. We default to open source wherever we can. And there is a repo called TF-Lint rule set AVM, which is in the Azure org, and I will put a link in the chat to that shortly. But it is written in Go, so if you have got Go skills, we'd love to have you on board.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Matt. And now Bernie, kind of the same question over to you, Bernie. So we understand your tool set is PS Rule. For the community that doesn't know about PS Rule, what does everyone need to know about it?
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. Yeah, so basically, PS Rule for Azure is an open source community project like most of these things, and it's free to use, but obviously it's also used by a lot of Microsoft projects as well, both internally and externally. And so effectively, PS Rule for Azure is a set of tests and documentation. So I guess when we sort of started approaching PS Rule for Azure, we really wanted to provide a tool set that then makes it easy for customers to be successful on Azure. So instead of just providing arbitrary rules. We try to strongly ground them in the well-architected framework. And we also go ahead and try to focus on the documentation around, not what you did wrong, but more about how do you actually go ahead and, improve your code base and build secure, reliable solutions, right? And so there's lots of examples in there to support that. At the moment, we're about a bit over 400 rules. I think it's about 420 rules. And the general idea is that it should come pre-built, so you don't have to really think about these rules. And obviously, as you start to consume AVM, then a lot of these things are just in there by default, and you can go ahead and configure the WAF based on the documentation, the WAF guided configuration based on the documentation with AVM. But yeah, if you also want to build your own custom rules, you absolutely can do that. So you've got pre-built, but also you can also build your own rules, and there's definitely scope for that to sort of improve and change over time.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Bernie. And I think a lot of people know PS rules. It's been around a while now. But would you say, how does AVM itself, how has that enabled you to develop PS rule further, especially when we look at these last couple of months where we've started using it for the WAF alignment?
Yeah, I think AVM's again an awesome project, and I think really here the benefit here is both ways. Is that as AVM builds out more and more modules, and we have lots of PG involvement. Again, we're tuning the rules as we need to, right? The WAF has changed over the years, right? And it will continue to change. And so, the feedback that we get from the community and the feedback that we get from the module owners will obviously help to then improve the rules even more. But also then, it provides a validation check for as modules are being built out, have we thought about this thing or have we thought about that thing that then is important from the community's perspective. So again, it's a very symbiotic relationship in how that works.
Perfect. That's brilliant, Bernie. And then just thinking about that community relationship, if people want to raise issues or contribute, where can they do that today?
Yeah, I'll drop some links in the chat, but we have a GitHub repo, so there is some issues there that are marked help wanted. So feel free to, if you'd like to crack out an issue and help us solve one of those, then feel free to do that. We have also a whole bunch of issues that, again, if you find an issue with a module or something that then maybe documentation's incomplete, then please let us know. Or if you think of other rules that then align to the well-architected framework that you don't see currently there, then again, also let us know. But yeah, I'll drop some links in the chat for if you want to get involved and start to contribute. There's also a guide on contributing as well, so that might also give you some ideas about how you can contribute if you're interested. Thank you.
Amazing. Bernie, Matt, thanks a lot for your time this morning. Jack, I think I'm going to hand back over to you now while we do our external Q&A.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think a lot of you have probably heard enough from the AVM core team today and enough Microsoft folks. So we thought it'd be a really great idea to get some people from the external community who have been using AVM in the real world to share their experiences and give you an insight into what they're using and how they're using it and why. So we've got John and Stu here this morning. I don't know if both want to come on camera and unmute themselves to make sure that we can hear them nicely. But it'd also be great to get a very brief intro from both of you. So, John, I'll hand to you first.
So yes, my name is John Lokerse. I'm a DevOps consultant at Rubicon Cloud Advisor in the Netherlands. And I'm a big Bicep enthusiast. Maybe people know me already about Bicep. Yeah, and I work a lot with AVM modules in my daily job.
Fantastic. No, great to have you here, John, and thanks for participating. And Stu, over to you, buddy.
Hey, yeah, I'm Stu Mace. I work for Datacom down here in New Zealand, and the mountain you can see behind me is Mount Taranaki, which is in my region. There's a beautiful town you can walk up and see that shot that's right behind me. Yeah, I've been working with AVM for quite a few months now, mostly in the Terraform space. I've contributed to many of the modules currently out there, and I've got many more projects and plans in the works.
Awesome. No, thank you very much, Stu. So I think with that, we've got a number of questions to come to each of you. So I think, Stu, I'll come to you first, and we'll ask this one to you first. So how did you discover AVM, and why did you decide to start using it?
I honestly can't remember how I found AVM, but the reason why I started using it was because the minute I heard about it, I sort of thought, yeah, I recognized the Terraform ecosystem inside Azure. It was pretty fragmented. There's a lot of different implementations, a lot of different ways of doing things, different toolings, different ways of testing things, so many opinions, and it's really difficult to actually have a consistent way of working. And I thought, Microsoft getting behind it, their why rang very true to me, and I could see the same thing happen across our customers and internally as well. And I thought, it's really good that Microsoft has stepped up and sort of put this initiative on the table and bring in all this expertise and collateral. The open design, the open approach is amazing, and it just felt like an amazing opportunity to get involved and help further the use of Terraform in the community.
And then John, yep, great to have you. Same question to yourself. So how did you discover AVM? Why did you decide to start using it?
So my team and I were already using the predecessor of AVM, Carmel. And we basically moved along the migration to AVM. And why we decided to use it is because, we wanted to accelerate the project really quick, because most of the team members I was working with didn't have a lot of knowledge about infrastructure as code or Azure in general. So it really helped us to build something quick and get up and running with the project. And also a benefit is that everything was WAF aligned. So that was a great benefit as well.
That's perfect. That's great to hear as well. So thinking about it kind of now, so you've been in AVM, understanding it for a while. How are you using it yourself now and in your day-to-day work internally with your customers?
So currently I'm working at a large Dutch government organization, the Belastingdienst, as we call it in the Netherlands. And we are building a platform landing zone and landing zones in general with Azure Verified Modules.
Perfect.
Fantastic. And I think then, Stu, it'd be great to see how you're using it on the Terraform side. How are you using it in your day-to-day workflow and with customers or other people that you're working with?
Yeah, okay, so I'm using it with one key customer, a university in New Zealand, and we're using it basically across the board for landing zone, so actually using it for sub-vending in particular, and also for resources. And I guess the other approach with this with my customers has been to actually encourage the use of designing modules in the style of AVM, because unlike Bicep, Bicep has an advantage over Terraform in the AVM space, is that it's grown out of the Carmel library, which had a lot of resources already. Terraform is starting from a lower base, but there is an excellent open specification on the AVM webpage, which talks about how modules should be structured and the rules and the thinking and the ideas behind the design. And so if a module isn't available, what I encourage people to do is to make sure they understand that pattern and understand those design guidance and then follow those approaches. The obvious win there is that once the official module does get released, if you've followed the guidance, you can drop your existing module and inherit the one from Microsoft or the one from the community, and then you've got less code to maintain. So yeah. So and then the flip side also is that by understanding how these modules are designed, it helps you troubleshoot them, helps you add to them, and contribute to the community.
No, awesome, and thank you both for being active contributors in the community. I think that's how we've discovered you and found you for this call, because you were so prominent in giving us feedback and getting involved and helping fix stuff. So it's amazing. So coming back to you, Stu, obviously you've talked a little around there about how are you contributing today. We just want to give a little bit more insight about what sort of things you are contributing. Like, it doesn't always have to be a complete module, right? Like sometimes it might be a small issue or something else. So do you want to give us a bit of an insight into what you're doing there?
Well, no, absolutely. There's everything. So I think the template is a place where I've done a fair bit of work. So when you want to first start an AVM module, there's a template to get you started, which you clone. So that's received quite a bit of love. Lots of alignment. So around the networking module, as an example, we've been doing a bit of work there recently to align that to the AVM spec. I did similar work in the storage space. Yeah, and then also actually just writing modules from scratch is quite fun. And I've got a few posts on LinkedIn and on my blog where I've shared how you can write them from scratch, which I'll drop in the chat in a bit.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Stu. And then John, yeah, kind of same question to you. So contribution efforts. How are you contributing to AVM today, and how would you encourage others to do the same?
So it depends. Most of my PRs recently were related to adding user-defined types for the modules. So I'm giving objects and arrays a strong type, so they have more context of what the parameter is, if it's an object or array. And besides that, I am going through the issue list and picking up issues that the community is opening. And I do encourage everyone to contribute to AVM, because it's a win-win for everyone, right? So the community has benefit, Microsoft benefit, and the users of AVM has benefits. And it's also fun to do. So it's a little bit a hassle of a setup sometimes, but when you're done with that, everything is just bicep focused. So you only have to write your bicep files, test them. It's pretty easy. But I want to share two things that I came across when contributing. So one of them is, if you're stuck with building a module or contribution, just ask for feedback. Everyone is really eager to help, either in your issue or in your pull request. Just open your pull request early for feedback. And also, don't make the mistake like I did. Disable your workflows when you're not using them. So when you fetch your changes to your branch, every change that is made in other modules is being deployed automatically in your environment, which will generate cost. I was lucky with Microsoft support that they helped me, but just a warning: there's a workflow that you can run to disable the workflows automatically.
I think that's great, John, and that goes hand in hand with some of the contribution guide updates that I think Sebastian's been doing on behalf of the team as well recently. The first bit you touched on there around user-defined types, I know specifically for Bicep, but that is a big effort on the Bicep side. That's what's going to make those modules a much more usable by lower skill sets later on, getting that IntelliSense capability in VS Code. So the efforts there completely valued and are very, very valuable across the AVM program. So I'm going to come back to you with kind of the next question. What's for you to think, what do you like about AVM the most so far? Out of everything you've worked on, looked at, and been through, what's the favorite thing that sticks out?
So what I really like is that all the modules that are in the repo are ready to use and tested and ready to use. So I can pick them off the shelf, implement it in my project, and it already works. So and it's without hassle, so it's great. And what I really like is that it's community driven. So that's a huge plus for me. So you can make impact by contributing and also using it.
And then I think, Stu, like the same question to you, like what's your favorite thing about AVM so far? What are you enjoying?
I think it's, as I've mentioned already, the open design definitely is, particularly because of the early stage nature of the Terraform side of things, and comparatively to Bicep. That clarity of design is extremely useful, and the openness there is great. And also just the feedback and support and help from the Microsoft team has been great. I would say, yeah, if you're an intermediate to advanced Terraformer, you would be crazy not to get involved. I guarantee you will learn something, and it's definitely worth it, and also look great to give back to the community.
No, absolutely. I think, and the community thing is absolutely one of the key principles that we started AVM with, that we wanted it to be built and live in the community, not something that's hidden behind walls. So yeah, absolutely great to see people getting involved. And I think, as both of you have made pleased to, like, if anybody else out there is thinking about it, then please do get involved. Everybody is super friendly, and we're always willing to take feedback, no matter what it is. So yeah, please do get involved via GitHub and reach out to us. So now for the magic question, the one that everybody loves. Stu, coming to you first here. If you were to have a magic wand, what would you want to see changed or get added to AVM in the future?
Okay, a few things. One, if I can have multiple magic wands. One is just making that contribution process a little bit easier for externals, and a little bit easier to get, say, PRs landed. That's probably one piece from an external perspective. A second would be some of the very, very early released modules for Terraform in particular have needed a little bit of adjustment to align to the AVM specification. So it would be great if they could magically land on their initial version perfectly aligned to the spec. Now, of course, that's not going to happen, but that would be my magic wand number 2.
And then again, John, I think the same question to you. If you had that magic wand, what do you want to see change or get added to AVM in the now or in the future?
Yeah, so I really had to think about this because it's already really good, right? So what I would really like to see is a feature to generate AVM code snippets. Like in Bicep, you can autocomplete for example, a key vault with res-key vault, and then tap, and you have everything you need for that key vault. That's what I would really like for AVM as well. So you can autocomplete it, tap through it with the required properties. That would be a really great benefit. And the other one is that more flexibility with the outputs of the modules. So it's really basic sometimes, and maybe too basic, because I want child outputs as well. And that's what I'm missing sometimes.
I love that first one, John. If I had a third magic wand, that'd probably be it. Is if you could make if you could make ChatGPT write AVM module outputs instead of the resource style code, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So all I would say on that one is watch this space. We are in conversations with Azure Copilot teams and GitHub Copilot teams to start taking AVM as a source. Early conversations, but just sort of that is definitely our intent. So yeah, watch this space. I can't promise anything soon, but it's definitely our intentions.
Cool.
Well, both, thank you so much for joining this morning and this evening. I know it's late for you, Stu. It's been great to get some real feedback from some real customers. And obviously, I think you're hearing it from the source, the horse's mouth here, folks, that, people are using this in the wild and are contributing to it. So please do get involved and, be like John and Stu and help us build this amazing initiative that we've started. So thanks again, gents.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I think I'm handing back to Pankaj to give us a bit more on how to get involved. Now we've heard from Stu and John on how they're getting involved. So Pankaj, over to you.
Thanks, Jack, and thanks, John and Stu, for that awesome interview session. A lot of learning from that session. Um, as I mentioned, and as everybody was mentioning about it, how do you get involved? So it is open for everyone to contribute. We rely on the devolved ownership model here. We rely on our contributors to develop more and more modules and contribute to the modules. Um, the way you can contribute right now is we have a couple of links which we have pasted in the chat. As we have also some links mentioned here on the slide. You can go and have a look at our backlog, which is mentioned on our repo. Have a look at the proposed modules, either for Terraform or for Bicep, and go ahead and contribute. Put down yourself as the I want to contribute to this specific module. I want to be a contributor, and then we should be able to find a Microsoft FTE to be the owner of that module, and while you can help to contribute the code on the sides. That's one way of it. The other way is if you see that a particular module is not available either in Bicep or in Terraform, and that's something which you have been working on or your customers have been working on, feel free to raise that as a new proposal. We will triage that, and again, we will follow the same process where we can help you to set up pair it up with the Microsoft FTE as an owner and you as a contributor. So there are a couple of ways you can contribute, identify the modules, propose a new module, and one of the other things that I've also started to see is if you see any module which is not having an owner, or if it's requiring some sort of more updates to it, if you think you can add some value to the specific module, feel free to reach out and we can probably find some contribution mechanism on that specific ones. For example, if somebody has left being the owner of it and we are trying to find a new owner, a new contributor to that specific module, that's another way of getting involved with existing module sets. We have listed a couple of public-facing labs as well. So you can see the AVM labs mentioned, where we have both labs for Bicep and for Terraform mentioned here. So feel free to go out and test those labs into your subscriptions. So there's a step-by-step process in terms of how you can consume these modules. We have given you specifications and contribution guides links as well, which is again available on the same public-facing website. And to stay informed, we have a monthly update as well. So please stay informed. In terms of this external community call, we are going to set up this call quarterly. We started with the EMEA APAC sort of time frame with this quarter, and the next one will be scheduled more on the Americas and EMEA time zone friendly session. With that, Chris, if you move to next. Wonderful. So with that, we will open the floor for any Q&A, any thoughts, any feedback, any questions, any recommendations that you may have on Azure Verified Modules. And we have the whole SME team here to answer your questions.
Yeah, and we just had one question in the chat around, is this going to be recorded and be available later date? And yeah, absolutely. It will be available on our CAE YouTube channel. So if any of you have watched the Azure Landing Zones community calls that we host, it's going to be in the same place. So we'll put that there within 24 to 48 hours, depending on how busy my day is today. So yeah, we'll get it there as soon as possible. So yeah, they'll be available, and they'll be listed in the resources section on the AVM site as well. So you've got one stop shop to find everything around AVM. I think before we get into any questions from the community that's here today, we've had some that have already been logged on the GitHub issue that we always put alongside this meeting invite, that people can go there at any time and post issues just in case they're not able to join or maybe they're in the wrong time zone. So yeah, we've got a couple here. So the first one is from Marco, which is all around why we don't have a sort of a naming prefix for components inside of our Bicep modules. This is very similar to something that I started in ALZ Bicep. It's known as Hungarian notation and has caused many heated conversations within the team. But it's an interesting point. I think that the reason we've done it is, or not done it, is we didn't feel it was necessary, right? You know, we did this for very different reasons in ALZ Bicep, which was to help it be readable and editable by sort of anybody who like level 100, level 150, starting with the modules. Whereas AVM's more built to be these modules are in the public registry. You can't really change the underlying code of them. You're just changing what you put in by the input parameters and variables. So we didn't feel it was necessary to go down this route. I personally quite like it. I see the point. Like it does make it a lot easier to read sometimes. But you know, right now I don't think there's any plan to change this right now. But if you do feel strongly about this, then please do raise a GitHub issue on the AVM repo, and we'll happily triage it and see if there's more community feedback for this and see if it's something that the community want us to do. But right now I don't think it's something we'll change just because we've got lots of other things that we can add some value on first. But glad to see you like the Hungarian notation. I'll put that in my column somewhere so that I can track that I've got another fan.
You got one person that likes it.
Hey, there's lots of people who like my Hungarian notation. So yeah, but no, great question, and thank you for logging, Marco. And the next one we've got here is all around what's our interaction like with the product groups. So I think you've heard us talk a little bit both together or a couple of times on this call already about how we interact with the product groups. So both the Bicep product group and the Terraform product group, or the Azure Terraform product group inside of Microsoft, are fully aligned to this. So we didn't release AVM to the wild until we had all of this support and backing, and that took many months to get everybody aligned and agreed on the destination, especially on the Terraform side. With they had started the existing initiative around Terraform verified modules. But now, you know, we're meeting, and Matt and the team are meeting with the Terraform PG folks pretty much every week to discuss.
Every month we have a regular.
Yeah. To develop features. So I think, you know, Zijay and some other people from the team are actively involved in like developing TF-lint and all sorts of different bits and pieces. They're even owning modules, right?
That's right.
So yeah, so that's a great collaboration we've got going on the Terraform side, and on the Bicep side, we've got similar. So we have Sydney, who joins us every week in our weekly scrums. We're present on the Bicep community calls as well, so that everybody gets a chance to speak to the AVM team there, and also we've got you know, a really good collaboration from an RP level with all the resources. So every module owner who has to be an FTE today, one of their requirements is once they've got their module built, they should be reaching out to the product groups within Microsoft to get them to vet it and basically give it a once over and say, yeah, I like that. That's aligning to what we want our customers to be using the service like and deploying it like. And that's all being there and tracked as well. So that's something we're striving for. In terms of consistency between the APIs, between our resource providers, that's a big challenge that we see. And that's something that with our AVM shared interfaces, we're trying to sort of put a shim over the top to try and hide that problem for our module consumers. Now, obviously, that's not the perfect Nirvana solution. We want them to fix this at source. And that is something we're speaking to another team who have managed sort of specifications and API schemas within Microsoft. That's a longer running conversation. It's been going for a little while already. But we're starting now get to that point where we can, with comments like this, we can start taking real customer feedback saying, you know, look, we shouldn't have to do this in AVM if everybody just aligned from the start. But it's a long running conversation and obviously takes a larger amount of effort to change underlying RPs and new versions, etc. So yeah, it's definitely something we're highlighting and exposing to them. But things like AVM are helping highlight these problems to get them the attention they need. So, you know, look at the virtual networks and subnets problem, right? Without AVM and ALZ over the last, you know, couple of years, that problem probably still would have been sitting there. And we've driven that for ourselves, a number of us in this team, to get that problem resolved. So they take time, but we do get the big problems tackled. So be patient, but we will get there. I suppose with that, we will now go to questions from the community. So, Chris, I'll hand to you and see if there's anything burning in the chat. I saw some open tofu mentioned. So,
I think the first one is, yeah, Matt, if we can hand over to you for the open tofu and HashiCorp discussion.
Yep. Of course. Essentially, our Microsoft's relationship with HashiCorp is not changed at the moment. And what we've done is we're keeping a watching brief on the open tofu project. What that means is we're using data from our own APIs to try and understand who out there is actually using OpenTofu versus Terraform. At the moment, that data supports the our kind of thought that actually most people are still using Terraform. The vast majority of people are still using Terraform. So we do not have any plans to extend testing specifically to OpenTofu for the reason that it isn't that popular at the moment, according to our data, and also that they've maintained they had a promise for compatibility. So at the moment, we see there isn't any need to put effort into that testing process. Now, this situation may change, and if it does, then we will adapt and move with the data-driven decisions essentially that we have. People start adopting OpenTofu, and it becomes essentially the market leader or the preferred solution. Of course, we'll go with that. But at the moment, the data doesn't support that, and customers are free to use OpenTofu if they want to. Of course, they can make their own choice, but it's on the compatibility promise that they've made to align with Terraform.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Matt. I see there's another one in the chat from one of our attendees around naming module. Could that be part of a resource or pattern module? I think, Jack, I'm just going to hand that one slightly to you because I know your love for naming modules. So where do we set a naming module with an AVM currently?
So naming is one of those things that we love and hate both equally, because everybody does it slightly differently. Everybody has their own approach. And so what we actually did in AVM right from the very start is saying we're not going to give a name to any resource. People have to provide it because then we aren't in path, right? We don't get involved. Like me and Matt have been burnt by this on the ALZ side many a time where we've used a complex naming standard and already like interpolated what we think the name should be based on a root ID, and we've heard loud and clear that people don't like that. So we made name a mandatory input for all of our resource modules. We are, in terms of a naming module, there's no plans right now, but please log a module proposal if you think you'd like to see one. And what we need to ensure is that it's super flexible and super accommodating to anyone. But we're also, and this is something sort of hot off the press we were discussing last week as a group, we're thinking about adding another type of module to AVM called utility modules. So we've got resource modules, we've got pattern modules. We're also going to add utility modules potentially. We're very early days, but hopefully we'll start seeing some of these appear in the next couple of months. But these ones would not deploy any resources specifically, but they will spit out data basically. So they could, a naming module makes perfect sense, or do tasks that are sort of more idempotent by nature, like doing a push, or sorry, doing a post to a specific API that isn't a declarative put, like those sort of things. So something very early days, but that's sort of our direction of travel. Matt, do you want to add something on that one, buddy?
Yeah, thanks. Just on the naming module, excuse me, frog in my throat. It doesn't really make sense to put that utility naming module in every resource module, because if you have a instance where you've got hundreds or thousands of resources being deployed in a state file, you're going to have thousands of copies of that naming module as well. So we need to think very carefully about where these utilities modules fit and where they should and shouldn't go. And that's another reason why we didn't do it to start with. It's like, you think about Terraform state having to go refresh the state of all those objects. It makes much more sense for naming to sit outside resource modules, I think, in terms of scale. But yeah, people do like it. It is a decision, as Jack said, it's a decision that we very consciously avoided to because it's a very opinionated topic. I mean, if I had my way, I'd just use random pet for every name and then just use Azure Resource Graph to query the stuff. But I know that's quite unpopular, so I'll shut up now.
That's your Hungarian notation one, isn't it? That's the mine's Hungarian notation. Yours is random pet for everything.
Yeah, just unpopular opinion. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Jack and Matt. I see we've got one around telemetry. I did put the link back to the AVM telemetry that is on our site. Pankaj, are you able to give any information around the telemetry that obviously we collect as part of the AVM modules?
Yeah, I mean, we are collecting the standard telemetry, which is available from our clusters. We are trying to keep all the data associated with different module versions. So whatever is module versions have been deployed, we are trying to keep track of all this previous data. from the time we have started so far. So we haven't sort of reduced the number of days that after these days we're going to delete this data. So that's something which is in progress. But since the time the deployment has been happening on the AVM side, we have kept all those data so far.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Pankaj. I see there's one around user-defined functions. In some of the modules, we're already using user-defined functions, especially on the when we look at user-defined functions and user-defined types. Someone commented after that around the import-export. That is something we are definitely planning to import into the modules. So actually having shared user-defined types that can be used across modules. So that is something that's going to be very much coming in the near future. Is there anything else I've missed from the chat? Have you clocked any, Jack?
It doesn't look like it. I think we've got most covered. Yeah, so I suppose like final call, we're on time, which is uncommon for an external community call. So yeah, if anybody does have any last questions, then please do put them in the chat, and we'd love to hear from you. Oh, there we go, Matt. One right in your rally.
So we are looking at the benefits of recommended. We can't force people to switch providers, but we're looking at the benefits of using Azure API once 2.0 is released. The reason is, I don't know if you're familiar with Azure API 1.13, the stuff that's just happened, in that you can actually use a standard HCL object to declare your resource, which means it kind of tracks properties better, and you know, it doesn't mark the whole thing as secret if one thing's secret. So yeah, there's some really great improvements there. I really love it because, like, we had an issue the other day where a module author couldn't implement TLS 1.3 because Azure RM hadn't been updated, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Why is it like this? However, there are some drawbacks as well. We were speaking to the Terraform PG just the other day, and they were saying actually that some of the things that Terraform does in Azure RM has got, like, it's got the properties in the schema where if that changes, it knows it has to recreate the resource. The problem is that's manually crafted, and it's not in any Swagger definition. So AZ API can't implement that, we don't think. So that's going to be quite challenging. So yeah, at the moment, we don't mind which one you use. There are definitely benefits and drawbacks of both. Use the best one that fits. But my preference would be to go the auto generate for most stuff in the future. I'm hoping that we can get there, but it's a road that we have to go down. For data plane stuff, AZ API is probably going to be a bit of a disadvantage again. So Azure RM is probably going to be better for anything data plane in the medium term anyway. But yeah, hope that helps.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. There was one that we did miss, which is around brownfield migration, people that already have existing infrastructure and then want to move to AVM modules. I think we could safely say this is something we could probably put on our backlog to take a look at what the current state is with some of that. But again, probably down to experience and what yourselves have built. That experience may vary. Just one that I see here is where has it gone? There seems to be more of an investment in Bicep modules compared to Terraform. Is there a catch-up intended? Definitely. You know, Bicep was able to start with the Caramel library, which was already a library of just over 100 resource modules. So that they have been migrated and built on top of that. The Terraform side of the AVM team is very much building Terraform modules as we speak. And I think, Matt, one of the focuses from yourselves was to build more of the tool sets to ensure that those Terraform modules coming in have better tests and are governed more easily and basically make that review process easier, right?
Yeah, the way we scale this is by reducing the amount of manual reviews that we have to do. So yeah, absolutely, there's a lot of investment in tooling going on.
Awesome. Is there any you've noticed, Jack?
No, there's a few great feature asks going on though. So I know I sound like a broken record on chat saying please log a GitHub issue, but please do log a GitHub issue because that's how we track and monitor these things. So yeah, please do let us know. And I think we're pretty much there. I think we just got one about ACR. Yeah, so inner sourcing of modules, we know is a big requirement for some of our large customers who may be nervous around consuming from public repositories and public registries. Some people are already doing that today, and those of you that did know Caramel, that's sort of one of its strings to its bows that it had an inner sourcing approach as well, and a way of keeping in sync with all the module changes. It's not something we focused on right now because we were focused on getting AVM off the ground and getting people invested in how it works and aligned to the spec and making sure the modules were as robust as they can be. And we're still on that journey. We're still improving them. But we definitely have in our plans for FY25, which for those of you who don't know the Microsoft terms, that is from June on, like from June onwards until June next year is our next financial year, FY25, and that's something that we see as a big ticket item to try and solve and get some inner sourcing guidance out. So do see that there. Today, people are forking it and keeping it in sync themselves, using things like Carmel CI as inspiration. But there's no official thing from AVM just yet. But do watch this space. It's something me and Chris have been chatting about for a couple of weeks. So we do know it's a problem and a requirement, but nothing just yet. And with that, is there anything else? Deployment stacks, when it goes GA, yeah, we'll have to have a look at it and see what we need to do for those to see if they're supported. So yeah, do stay tuned. We are aware that they are approaching GA, so hopefully we'll see that soon. And yeah, obviously they're a great tool for all of us on the bicep front, especially in terms of deleting resources at last, which would be a great addition for all of us. So yeah, do stay tuned. But I think we are just over now, so I'm going to probably suggest, Chris, we wrap it up, and yeah, we'll see you next month.
Yeah, and if anybody has any more comments, please add them to the GitHub issue or raise new issues, like Jack says, for any future requests. But thanks a lot, everybody, for attending, and yeah, see you on the next one, next quarter.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.